All right, it's very, very exciting. Tzurba Merabbanan is back. It's back. It's very exciting. I do love Tzurba Merabbanan, so a big shout out to the Mizrahi magazine. And let you know that the Lamb family in Melbourne, and we know the Lambs in Melbourne, so thank you, Danny, for organizing this and sponsoring, I should say. We are learning the laws of I'm in the middle of a meal. It could be a Shabbat meal. And there are foods which are eaten on a Shabbat meal. But normally, what happens at a Shabbat meal? You make Kiddush, you wash your hands, you make Hamotzi, and then you eat. So, what's this question about where it says making extra Berachot during the meal? Well, what we're going to learn tonight there are some things which are not normally eaten with bread, and things which are not normally eaten with bread require extra berachot. So that's what we're going to learn. So if you turn to page 23, and after saying I love books, why we have 23 pages before we get there, but that's another story. Will you please turn to page 23 and see their source number 1. And source number 1 is the Gemara. Okay, the Gemara, Masechet Berachot, Daf Mem Aleph Amud Bet, and there the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa said, Hilchata, here is the halacha. Now, you always love it when the Gemara says Hilchata. Here is the bottom line halacha. Devarim habaim machmat ha'seuda betoch ha'seuda ein teunim beracha lo lifnehem velo la'acharehem. Things which come because or due to the meal. And then the translation adds a few extra words here, which are eaten together with bread as part of the meal, during the meal, don't need a beracha, neither before or after. Okay? So they won't need a bracha before them. So let's say I've made hamotzi, and I'm bringing out some hummus. I'm bringing out some tuna. I don't need to make a beracha on those foods because they would be eaten with bread. However, and I wouldn't need an after bracha because the Birkat Hamazon after it would cover them. However, shelo mechmat ha'seuda, things which are not eaten with bread, betoch ha'seuda, that are eaten during the meal, tu'unim bracha lifnehem, do require bracha before them, ve'ein tu'unim beracha lacharehem, but they would not require a bracha after them. So what that means is they don't require Birkat, they wouldn't require thereafter bracha, but they would require their before bracha. So what type of things would not be included in foods which we would not eat with bread? What types of things are we thinking about here? What would we say?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. Possibly if someone came and offered you some fruit, some
fruit. Okay, right? So I'll tell you.
Part of the meal.
I'll tell you. I for not for many years, the first couple of years of marriage, we would eat at Sharona's aunt and uncle, and the first course on Shabbat morning was always fruit salad. And sometimes I would take the fruit salad and I would be like, okay, I'm going to put the fruit on the bread and eat it with the bread. No way, you don't do that. No. So what happens? When you learn this Gemara? You don't do that. You would make even if I've had the bread, I've made my hamotzi. If I'm having fruit salad as my starter, I would make a brei pri ha'etz or a brei pri ha'adama. If I'm having apples, brei pri ha'etz, I'm having some bananas, brei pri ha'adama, even though it's during the meal. Why? Because those are things which are never normally eaten with bread.
I would think that would be the case almost for anything else. For instance, vegetables.
No, those are things which are normally served with bread. So what we're saying here is things which are normal. Because there's something which is lalefet otam, which are there as like relishes. So you're like, what would I consider eating with bread? So things like hummus, chatzilim, all those beautiful Israeli salads, some baba. I want to get some baba ganoush. I want to get some, matbucha. I wanted samples. Someone said, Rabbi, you're giving a class. Where is the food? Where's the comida here? Come on. So then maybe next week, Cormac, let's get on that. Let's get some comida next week so we can work on it.
Dinner, I'm getting hungry.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Absolutely.
But
So
isn't the Moroccan custom though, is they do all the Berachot before Hamotzi?
great. So even in our house, we will do those Berachot before Hamotzi. Here, the question is, if I'm doing them during, if I've already made my Hamotzi, what happens? So we're saying olives, all these savory things, they go with bread. Okay, the chicken goes with bread. It doesn't have to be gravy. It doesn't have to be something that I dip. It's something savory, which I would consider that is salty. That is normal mains or appetizers.
What are the vegetables you're thinking about, Mark? Because you said
I'm having chicken in there.
Carrots and string beans. I'd
Carrots and
say.
string beans, which are not.
Broccoli, yeah.
Yeah,
What? It depends. If I'm doing some carrots and sauce, I don't have to dip my bread into it. It's saying it's a normally savory item. Now, fruit, on the other hand, ice cream, something really sweet, something which is just
What about chocolate spread?
chocolate spread you could get away with.
Yeah.
Maybe. Come on, I know. Okay, maybe, but
Tomato is technically a fruit.
tomatoes,
And
not in Halakhot.
jam? I mean, any type of jam.
So
is
jams,
sweet.
so those are sweet. So those are things which I would call lafiyatan. They would be relishes, which I would put on. So mayonnaise, ketchup, jams, jellies, peanut butter. Those things wouldn't require bracha because they're eaten with bread. But fruit, as an example, are things. I mean, the fruit is the main example of something which is completely out of it. They would require a before blessing. Okay, so again, I'll give you the example that I mentioned before. I've washed, I've made hamotzi, and the Rabbi starts bringing out a fruit salad to start the meal. Okay, those would require berachot because you wouldn't have them with bread.
So caterers sometimes will serve like sorbet.
A
between
sorbet,
the courses.
yeah,
So you would make a bracha on the sorbet.
it could well be.
That would
Yeah.
be a good example.
Okay, it's
Salad,
a palate cleanser.
Yes, that's right.
I'm such a foodie.
you're saying if it's sweet,
No, I'm saying something which you wouldn't eat. That's what I was saying. The more I was thinking about it, I was thinking something which you would never eat with bread. So fruits is a great idea. It's not sweet. Okay, so we're gonna get there.
But fruit at any time though is
Frutas anytime, before,
Middle,
after,
middle.
during. We're gonna get to after. Then it says le'achar ha'seuda, when it's after the main meal. To unim baracha, they require bracha bein lifneihem, bein achareihem. If they come after the meal, then they would require bracha before and again, obviously after. What does it mean after the meal? They mean after Birkat Hamazon. So let's say, and again, it's a good one from Melbourne. When we lived in Australia, you talk about long Shabbat lunches. There, at Shabbat lunch, you know what would happen? You'd have your meal, and you'd have dessert. Do Birkat Hamazon, you think you're done. No, then it's cake and tea, and it's second dessert. So those would require more brachot. Because I've done my Birkat Hamazon. You know what? If you're trying to watch yourself, I mean, it was a 5-hour meals. I mean, they were long. They were long Shabbat meals. Okay, so what we've learned here is, with the exception of fruit, which is something which you would never eat with bread, everything else, if it's during the meal, doesn't require a before blessing, and there's no after blessing because it all gets included with Birkat Hamazon.
what is the fruit that you do eat with bread? Like
Give me a fruit you eat with bread.
peanut butter and banana sandwich.
Raisin bread.
It's a thing.
Raisins.
Peanut butter and bananas. Okay, fine. I agree with you.
Raisin bread.
Raisin bread. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to give you things like I'm trying to give you pieces of melon, pieces of.
Yeah, somebody puts out a plate of fruit.
My mom used to put a
Yeah.
kiwi in bread. It's nah.
No, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Blueberry. Okay. Fine. People could try play with games with me. I'm not having it. Okay. If you turn over the page to page 24, and you go to source number 2, Rashi. So now you might see from the color coding here, we're now using the blues. The blue color coding is telling you that these are Rishonim. These are rabbis who live in the around 1,000 years ago. Okay, they are commenting on the Talmud. Rashi on the page there says, Devarim habaim machmat hasuda, food items that come because of the meal, lalefet bahenet apat, which are there to be eaten together with bread. That's how Rashi explains it. Tosafot disagree. And what do they say? So first, Piresh Ri, Devarim habaim machmat hasuda betoch hasuda. Kolomar, what does that mean? Harigilim lavo mechamat hasuda bepat. Regilim ochlan im hapat. For example, things which are normally eaten with bread. It's normal. We're accustomed to eat them with bread. For example, kagon, basar v'dagim, meat or fish, v'chol minei kederan, all types of cooked foods. V'havi'an betoch hasuda, and they are brought during the meal. Ein te'unin bracha lifnehem v'acharehem. They don't require bracha, not before or after. Afilu ochlan betoch hasuda bifnei atzman b'lo pat. Even if they are eaten what? By themselves without bread. The kevan de mishum pat hem ba'in hapat potratan. Since they came because there was bread, the bread exempts them. So let's say, for example, on Shabbat, I'm really looking forward to the Rubisa's beef. Okay, she makes something sous vide, and everyone knows that the rabbi is struggling. He doesn't eat meat during the week, and the Rabbi doesn't like eating meat during the week. And I'm really looking forward to that meat on Shabbat lunch. Okay. By the way, spoiler alert: the Hassans eat meat for Shabbat lunch. Okay, sorry, Larry. So get to know, or you don't have to come to the house. You can just hear it on class. So I'm really looking forward to the meat, and I'm not using the bread with the meat. Says the Tosafot here, because I wouldn't be eating the bread. I wouldn't be eating the meat if it wasn't for the bread which was coming out. And so therefore, even if I don't eat that beautiful whatever it is, without it,
Brisket.
it could be a brisket. We're going to call it what am I calling it? A kulat or something. I'm talking about a nice, beautiful piece of meat. I'm not eating it with the bread, but it's only becoming because it's a Shabbat meal, which is eaten with bread. That's what happens.
So I'm just thinking, for instance, cranberry sauce. Even though it's sweet, it's eaten as part of the meal.
100%. That would not get. That's what I'm saying. The real
That's why I
examples.
mentioned it.
The real examples are really things like. I'll tell you, cherries. I'm thinking. I'm thinking melon, fresh fruit, a fresh fruit platter. About devarim she'ein darkan lavo b'toch hasuda, but things which never come during the meal. For example, tamarim, dates, says the Tosfot, or rimonim, or pomegranates, ush'akol perot, or other types of fruits, she'ein regilim lalefet bahen hatapa, which are not normally there to come to be eaten with bread. To unin bracha lefnehem, they do require bracha before them. The kevan de lav mishum lefatan oto ein apat patoratan. Since they're not usually, we don't think of them, they don't enhance anything, they're not part of the bread meal, I would never think of them. So here is a concept which I want to share with you, which the Tosfot is talking about, which is kavanah. I'm a guest at your home, okay? Okay, we're going to have a potluck in a few weeks, Bezrat Hashem, and I'm signed up, and I'm going to Larry and Lisa's home, and I've got no idea what Larry and Lisa are going to make, although normally I do. But let's imagine I don't know what Larry and Lisa are making. I'm coming to you, Devorah. Okay, you've signed up to be a host, and the Rebbeinu wants a Shabbat off. We're coming to you for lunch, okay? And I don't know what you're making. I can have an assumption that you're going to make foods which are eaten with bread. It would be unlikely for me to think, okay, we just had the bread course and it's only going to be fruit. I can assume there's going to be some kind of savory item such as meat or fish, or barakas or bulamas, let's be inclusive, which
I'll sign
could
up for that.
which could be Larry's very happy, which would be eaten and therefore I don't need to make a bracha. Now let's imagine it's something completely unique, something completely out of this world which I've never ever had. There could be a reason to say I need to make a new beracha. So what I'm trying to suggest here is I don't need to know the menu. I don't need to be that nosy and say, Shoshana, what are you making what's tonight? I can assume there's going to be food which goes together. Okay. So if Dor wants to surprise us, it's a special menu. He doesn't need to tell us. It can be a surprise mystery box. It can be like that because it's going to be something which is a relish to bread or something which is normally consumed as a main meal.
So I think there's another piece to this, which is when it talks about eating it with bread,
Mhm.
it's because they actually use the bread as a kind of utensil.
Utensil.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
which we don't really think that way unless you're having stew.
Mhm.
They would use maybe one utensil, and so the bread actually was eaten with all of the foods.
Well, it works really well for helping to put things on the fork that you can't,
Right,
even
okay.
meat and
There used to be a city.
Yeah.
There used to be a restaurant in the old city in the Jewish Quarter, which was a
served that
Roman restaurant, and they served you the food, kind of food, as a kosher restaurant.
Kosher food that you would eat, that you would need a
They
bread
didn't
to
give
eat
you
it.
utensils.
Ethiopian often also.
Yeah.
They didn't give you utensils.
You have different foods to help you with your
used the
food.
pita. They had
The
like
Greeks do the same thing.
yeah.
They're all
Okay,
about
I
the
yeah.
bread.
I just want to
Rabisa?
be clear, just
Yeah.
so that everybody, that when we say that the fruit would get its own, it's not fruit that is integrated within it. So if you're having that really delicious Moroccan chicken that's made with the dates and the apricots,
Right, 100%. If it's
Or a
good hair out there would be so good notes. If it is cooked fruit or it is things like that which are made and it's a nice,
the
it's
mango that goes in my chicken salad.
I think of Dahlia Amen makes a beautiful Friday night dinner where it's lots of fruits and prunes and apricots and things like that. That would be considered. You wouldn't need an extra bracha because that's being eaten together. Good point. Cormac.
Yeah, like my main concern is actually not sweet or fruit thing per se. I'm mainly thinking about mezonot because
Haven't got there. Yeah,
Oh,
we're not there. It's a good point. What we're going to see is those things which are mezonot during the meal are going to be included, but we're going to see what it says regarding dessert, whether that is indeed true or not. We're going to see. Okay. Hold the thought, but if it's during the meal, we're going to consider it something which satiates, which nourishes us, okay? And we'll see if for dessert, there is a new development. Now, go down to the bottom half of 24. We have a new color. The new color here is green. Green means we are now reaching the acharonim. Acharonim is anything from the Shulchan Aruch, which is from the 1500s and later. Okay, we're going to have in green. Okay, it's not contemporary. That's going to be our purple color. But for green, it's 1500s to about the, early 20th or the late 19th century. So the Shulchan Aruch says, codified just like Tosfot, and says, Devarim habayim betoch hasuda, things which come during the meal. אם הם דברים הבאים מחמת הסעודה, דהיינו דברים שדרך לקבוע הסעודה עליהם ללפת בהם את הפת, things which one normally fixes their meal on to be eaten together with bread, kagon, for example, meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, or cheese, udaisa umine meluchim, or some form of oatmeal, or we hear the translation here says porridge, nice English translation. Umine meluchim, or salty things. Afilu ochlam belo pat, even if they weren't eaten with bread. So you can see here, how is the Shulchan Aruch ruling like Tosafot? Okay, ain to an bracha lefnei. They don't require bracha before them. De bikat hamotzi potratan, because the bread blessing exempts them. And not afterwards. Why? To become a mazon potratan, because the grace after meals would exempt them also. Ve'im hem derim habayim shalom machmata seuda. But if they're things which are not normally eaten, what is that? The ein derech likvoa seuda alehem le'hevet apart. For example, teinim, okay, figs, anavim, grapes, v'kol peirot, and all the different types of fruits. They are never eaten with fruit. They would require a bracha before them because the bracha of hamotzi does not exempt them, and also they are not considered the main part. The lav mi'ikas udahem. They're not the main part of the meal, and therefore that's the way it is. But they don't require an after bracha because the Birkat Hamazon will exempt them. Now, the Mishnah Berurah on the top of page 25 adds an extra item for us here. What is the issue here? What does it matter if it's the main part or it's a secondary part? If it's ikar or tafel, what does it matter? Says the Mishnah Berurah. It says here where it's bolded, mikol makom, nevertheless, kivan shebata lehasbia ikas udahi v'nitafelet lehapat. Since it comes to satiate, it is a main part of the meal and is considered tefela, secondary to the bread. Okay? The same is true of all kinds of cooked foods which are normally brought during the meal. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the fact that they satiate means that they are taken under the wings, as it were, of the bread. Okay? The Magen Avraham adds, because they are secondary to the bread, therefore, it seems to me that if one does not wish to eat bread, but eats a small amount of bread anyway and says hamotzi, it would not exempt other foods. So let's say, imagine, could be me. I like to eat, that's not really true. I either don't eat bread or I eat a lot of it, I'll be honest. But let's imagine that I was very careful and I really wanted only a small amount of bread. Could I hold and say that what I'm eating is secondary to the bread? Can I say that the chicken or the beef or whatever I'm having is secondary? Says the Magen Avraham, no. If I am on a low-carb diet and I'm really watching the extra sugars that I'm having, and I only really want to say hamotzi, then says the Magen Avraham, maybe I need, not even maybe, he says I do, lachen nireli, tim ein if I don't desire to eat the bread, so I'm only eating a little bit, then the other foods are not exempted. It would seem to be from that shita of the Magen Avraham that what? And this could be a whole problem for all those people who have small amounts of bread and thinking, okay, I'm free. No, it's saying here, if you're only eating a small amount of bread, then you can't say that the food is coming to be with the bread. Yeah. So, there was a time where I was eating small amounts of bread. I'd have literally a bitzah of bread, and then I'd cut it up. That'd be my piece. And then the rest of the time, I'm having my proteins and my vegetables, and that's it. My mother's listening, by the way, so she can answer to all of this. So you got to be very careful with what's happening here, because it's saying if you're on a low-carb diet, could well be that this is not the issue. However, the Magen Avraham, you see that in the pink paragraph there, in the continuation, considers the other side of the issue, that since one generally fixes bread as the mainstay of one's meal together with these other foods, perhaps here too, the bread exempts them from requiring a bracha. The Mishnah Berurah refers to this uncertainty of the Magen Avraham and concludes that it is preferable not to eat bread at all in this situation and instead to recite individual berachot on all the other foods. But then he adds, except for Shabbat and Yom Tov. But wait, look at me, I'm telling you, I don't eat, except we're on vacation and the Rubisa wants to make sandwiches. I don't eat bread during the week, but I do eat it when Shabbat and Yom Tov. So Shabbat and Yom Tov, it's saying, here's a proof that I need to eat a few more slices of challah. I've got the proof here. I need to, because if not, I'm in a problem. The Magen Avraham says here in source number 7, Mihu beperot mevushalin beinayu, concerning fruits cooked whole, even with meat, afilu ben basar, im ein hatchilat keviut seudatan alayhu, yesh safek mivarech. Concerning fruits cooked whole, even with meat, if one did not initially fix his meal on them, uncertainty exists whether he should make a beracha. So maybe Mrs. Ammon's chicken with whole fruits might be a problem. Maybe I do need to make a beracha on them. But the Mishnah Berurah talks about this. He talks about something. I don't even know if I can say this in Sephardic Bikur Cholim. He talks about simus. Simus is a sweet carrot dish, one of my favorites my mother used to make for me, where it's called merin in Yiddish, where you have the carrots are with raisins or with pears or with apples, those things. And the question is there, do those fruits, do they need a bracha? It says here, in the bolded section there, it says, and he says, Shekorin apple simes, it's called their apple simes, or Me'agasim Shekorin Verin. It says there, Nire Shekol Ikaran Hen Ba'in Lemazon Ulesu'uda, Velo Lekinuach Ba'alma, Ela Betorat HaTavshil. They're not coming as dessert, they're coming as part of the main meal. And so therefore, the Mishnah Berurah deals with the question of the Magen Avraham, and the Mishnah Berurah makes a psak for Ashkenazim that if you have fruits as part, which are part of the cooked dish, they are considered a cooked dish, and they would not require an additional beracha. The Biur Halacha has a question. Nowadays, when dishes such as simus have become very common, one may not need to recite the bracha even over raw fruit. So maybe my whole example of the fruit salads at the beginning, maybe that one we might be okay with. So such as figs. He says, look at the Emek Bracha, who offers the reason for the halacha that figs are not considered part of the meal, that since they are not usually brought for the main part of the meal, they are considered as not coming part of the meal. Now, based on this, in countries that have a large amount of fruit, and people always cook fruit as food, like in our countries where they prepare fruits with other cooked dishes, it would seem reasonable to say that it has the same status as other cooked dishes. So what does the Biur Halacha says? If I'm going to cook them, then what? They take on the status of being a cooked dish, and therefore no bracha is needed. But if it's my fruit salad of Auntie Melanie, then it's going to be a bracha before.
So a compote. No, you're not
compote,
having fresh fruit.
right.
Compote at the beginning of the meal.
If a compote was a starter and not a dessert,
It's now part of the meal.
it would be part of the meal. It wouldn't require a beracha. Okay? You clearly know that we like to have compote for dessert. You're now going to ask what's the bracha on the compote. We have to wait and see. Okay? Top of page 27. Piskei Teshuvot, that's contemporary halacha, says, from all this we can infer to the common case nowadays of all kinds of side dishes to the main dishes, like rice and cubed carrots and potatoes, which are cooked together with types of fruit like plums, dates, raisins, pineapples, etc., that no obligation exists to recite a bracha over these fruits. So that's it. If they are cooked, no bracha. If they are by themselves as a fruit salad, or as a fruit salad, they're a platter or a fruit salad, they're going to do it. So we're going to get into our discussion. Yeah.
I'll ask you next Shabbat when I serve my chicken salad. It has the raw mango pieces in it.
Let's see it now. Reciting a bracha on a first course or dessert. We're going to see. We're going to get there. Have to be patient with Bisa. Hold those mangoes. Hold your mangoes. There you go. All right. We're going to see. So must one recite? This is the beauty of halakha. You could say, you know what? Ain't the devas soft? How far are we going to go here? Well, come on, Rabbi. I'm just eating. There's a stray. There's a stray mango. Come on. I don't normally wash my hands. I wash my hands. I made hamotzi. Leave me alone. How much more how much more are you asking of me? But it's saying, here we go. So must one recite a separate beracha on fruits or vegetables eaten as a first course or for dessert? According to what we have seen, it would seem that one should indeed recite a bracha even if the fruit is cooked. Why? Because that was only because they're coming as cooked dishes together. But if it, like I'm having some raisins cooked with the carrots, it's not that they're coming by themselves cooked. So maybe the compote as a starter or a dessert would require bracha. Rabbi Eliezer Melamed reaches this conclusion in his Peninei Halacha. Rabbi Eliezer Melamed is a contemporary rabbi in Israel, and he writes, concerning all fruits and vegetables that are eaten with the food designated to satiate, whether they are raw or cooked, so that's your answer to your salad of mango, the bracha of hamotzi exempts them, so don't worry about mango in the chicken salad. This includes prunes cooked with meat, raisins and rice, and sweet prunes and apricots, aka tzimmus, carrot salad and Waldorf salad served with the main course. But if they served sweet carrot salad or Waldorf salad after the meal for dessert, you know, sometimes you have that where it could be a dessert, it could be a side dish, and somehow in the Ashkenazic tables it's all side dishes and all desserts. You don't know what to do with yourself. It's saying it depends. Where did it come? Was it a side dish? I'm sorry, my mother's on the call. She's going to give me a hard time for making fun of Ashkenazi bashing. It's fine, you know. But if there's something sweet going on, she would say, no, she wouldn't say. You could say, it doesn't depend. When is it being served? Is this during the meal or is this afterwards? So it's saying, if they were served during the meal, we said you're out. But if they served the salad or the Waldorf salad after the meal for dessert, says Rav Melamed, one must recite a beracha rishona. Likewise, one must recite a beracha rishona on compote, which is cooked fruits. Okay, so that would be, so if I'm having my my apples and my pears and my mixed berries, and they're cooked up nicely with a little bit of cinnamon on the top, and I want that for my dessert, what's the bracha? Brei Pri, so Brei Pri Adama, depending what's in it. Now, if one serves grapefruit or melon, it changed, by the way, at my aunt's house. The Rubisa's aunt would sometimes do fruit salad, and later it became just cantaloupe, right?
Because Steve doesn't like fruit salad and only one in melon.
Oh, that's the answer. Okay, Uncle Steve only liked it. Okay, if one serves grapefruit or melon at the start of the meal, one must recite a beracha rishona on them, since they are a type of dessert served at the start of the meal to open it with a good taste, and they are not an essential part of the meal. Okay, so here's the answer. It doesn't matter if it's a starter or a dessert. It's not the main part of the meal. So even if I've just had hamotzi, if the fruit comes out, if it's hot or it's cold, and it's not a side dish, it's not served with the meat, it's not served with the bread, it's going to have the first bracha, the Brei Pri Ha'etz or the Brei Pri Adama. And same is true if it's coming afterwards. Turn over the page. Now, those who wanted to know about ice cream and sorbet, those palate cleansers that Mark was so interested in. And see that Larry's perked up a bit too.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's a good change of pace to finish one and
Go out for ice cream afterwards.
Okay, and what about the dessert ones too? But we'll go there. Nireh de minei metika, concerning sweet things, kagon glida, for example, ice cream. You've got to know these words. Okay, these are good Israeli words. Kagon glida, ice cream, or chocolate, or chocolate. Peshita de ein dinam kamashkin. We do not consider them like drinks. V'tzarich levarech alehem lifnehem. And we would require to make a beracha over it. So if you're having ice cream or fruit for dessert, I would have to make the fruit bracha, Brei Pri Ha'etz. I'd have to make a shehakol on the ice cream. Look what he says here. V'harbe harbe to'im bazeh. Many people err in this matter. So someone said to me, they actually messaged me and they said, Rabbi, why are you teaching such a basic area of halakha? And I said, because of this, which is guaranteed, it's not so basic, which is, I'm sure most of you knew you're not making berachot during the meal if it's a side dish. But these things here, what about as a starter? What about a dessert? What's going on with the ice cream? What's going on with this? There are questions. And he says here, and I don't think he's being kind, I think he's being honest. Harbe to'im bazeh. Maybe he's being kind and honest, which is lots of people make a mistake in this area.
Do we consider milkshake as a drink, though?
Do we consider a milk? You know what? Here's where we get complicated. You know,
Because
Cormac, come on. I only allow you to ask one hard question a lesson. Isn't that a milkshake? Come on, Rubisa, what do you want to say about a
I think the
milkshake?
next one might give us a little bit more information on that.
I was holding for time because I see where it was coming. You see here?
Mhm.
It seems to me, nireh sheglida chalavit, the dairy ice cream, dina ka'ochel, has the status of food. Kevan sheba'a lekinuach mevarachim alan. Since it comes as a dessert, we make the beracha over it. Aval shar glidot, but other ice creams, she'asuyot memashkin acherim, which are made from other liquids. He says here maybe popsicles. Dinam kamashke, we consider them like liquids. Ve'ein mevarachin alehem, we don't make a bracha over it. So it could be said, we might want to say that a milkshake is closer to.
Yeah, but he's talking about here like
ice,
sherbet
sherbet,
or ices.
Yeah,
ices.
they're fundamentally different, but I'm saying because milkshake is based.
I think it's too close to liquid. I think it depends. Is it really icy? How
Melted
frozen
ice
is
cream,
it?
that's my point.
Yeah, I mean, do you need a spoon or a straw? That would be
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
question.
that's true. You know, there's some places where you
Watch me doing ice cream with a straw.
Uh,
do
Not
that.
ice cream, I mean milkshake.
No, I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's
milkshake. There are milkshakes that are so thick
Yeah.
that you can't use a straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're very close to the form
We
of
have
the
to have a
ice
field
cream if
trip,
the
that's
temperature
it.
is low enough.
Okay, after this class, we're gonna go. We can decide if we're gonna go to. We did this. We didn't do this because I think I was very, very careful then. We can go and do all the things, the bagels, the donuts, what's mezonot, what's hamotzi,
Right.
all these other things. Is it
Right.
fried?
A
Is it
field
boiled? Is it baked? Is it this? Is it that? How liquid is the ice cream? Do I need a spoon or a straw? Wow, we're asking good questions. What can I tell you? What does this tell me? We Jews love our food. That's what this tells me. I knew I was onto a
This is the
winner.
must
You
have.
know, that's it. Okay. Well, let's have a look. The Yalkut Yosef. We're finding so Olet Zion is a beautiful Sephardic rabbi from the mid 20th century. You can see his books there, that the blue and the red ones behind Shoshana there. And now we're going to do the Yalkut Yosef, which is Hacham Avaji Yosef, or I should say his son, quoting him. And he says here in source number 14, Lechatchila, ideally, ein ra'ui le'echol glida b'toch ha'su'udah. You shouldn't really eat ice cream during a meal, or the siyuma, or even at the end, because he's concerned. Not that he's a joy. He doesn't what.
He's anti-ice cream.
He could say he's anti-ice cream, but it's a question of safek brachot. I'm not sure what blessing to make, so maybe I shouldn't. Ela yanichena, wait la'achar b'kat hamazon until after b'kat hamazon, va'az yivarech berkat shakol, and then make the bracha of shehakol. Ve'ein havdel b'zeh, and that could be your answer, by the way, Cormac, to your answer about what do I do with a milkshake. If you're really having a milkshake after a big lunch, you know, God help you, but but if you do need that milkshake, you know, have it afterwards.
He needs the milkshake.
He
I'll
does.
Put a few pounds on it.
We will.
But you really want it with the meal, though. But
Yeah.
You have to wait.
Ein havdel b'zeh ben gleda b'taravot chalav. It doesn't matter whether it's an ice cream or it's an ice cream without milk. Ve'im b'chol zo ochel mehaglida b'sof ha'su'udah. If he nevertheless does eat ice cream at the end of the meal, don't make a bracha here. Okay. Now, what's interesting is this is Rav Yitzchak Yosef. So you look at footnote 7 here.
Mhm.
This is Rav Yitzchak Yosef quoting his father's position. That's his father being Hacham Avad Yosef of blessed memory.
Mhm.
His other son, Rav David Yosef, reports, you know what? Sorry, brother, I think you got that one wrong. And says, you know what? My dad never did that. He actually made the bracha on ice cream even during the meal with bread. Though on Shabbat, he would first make Birkat Hamazon and then do it. So it seems to be, it depends what was happening. So it's not a question of that Rav Yitzchak Yosef got it wrong and Rav David Yosef got it right. It seems to be, it depends on the circumstances. If it's a large meal, he would prefer to finish the meal and bring out the ice cream. Perhaps what we're saying here is that Hacham Avad Yosef was in support of the Melbourne custom of bringing out second dessert. We bring everything full circle. Okay, so there you go.
More about Cormac's question though about
About
the
milkshakes? Yeah.
Because I was thinking about smoothies because those also become, so if you're having toast and a smoothie, which isn't a ridiculous meal in my opinion,
Mhm.
right? So is the smoothie separate?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's something you're going to have on a regular Shabbat.
No, but we're not. So we're saying if it's not Shabbat, then
If it's not Shabbat and you're having a bread meal, how would you eat a smoothie? I mean, I'd have a smoothie as a breakfast or an after gym activity.
That's because we don't eat a lot of bread as a family, but other people do.
I mean, I could imagine on a vacation and an all you can eat, like one of those Israeli breakfast type things. No, I'm ignoring it. No, I can. All right, we're going to the main question, which is Cormac's question about dessert. Now, this is important. When you're having cake and cookies, the question was, do you need to make a mezonot? So what we call this is what's known as pat haba'a bekisnin. Okay? Pat haba'a bekisnin is when I have a dough or something like that, which is sweet. And I have all things. So basically, somebody will tell you, I can take the same challah recipe and I can make a babka into it. I just put chocolate on there. I'm saying, why is the babka not hamotzi? Because it's sweet. Okay, because it's cake. Now, for Sfaradim, by the way, you should know this, and this is for Sam is Australian. I hope you're listening at 42 minutes in, and I'll send you the link so you can check it. If there's any sweetness, too much sweetness in it, it becomes mezonot for Sfaradim. Ashkenazim, it needs to be the majority of sweet, which is why there are many cases when Sfaradim go to Ashkenazim and the Ashkenazim are having their challah. That challah normally is way too sweet to be considered hamotzi for Sfaradim. Okay? But for Sfaradim, but for Ashkenazim is fine. In our scenario here, what's the question? When I get cake, the cake is really pahaba bekisnin. And so therefore it's really bread, which is too sweet. And so therefore it doesn't require a new beracha. It's considered like I'm eating more bread. My hamotzi originally covers it. So even though it's coming after the meal, it wouldn't do it. So if I'm having cake and cookies, no bracha. If I'm having a fruit platter, yes. If I'm having ice cream, seems to be a unsure. Maybe to have the ice cream as second dessert. And if I'm having cake as second dessert after Birkat Hamazon, also would get that Borei Minei Mezonot. So that, my friends, concludes this area here. Sorry?
What about desserts that aren't ice cream and aren't fruit?
Aren't fruit and aren't cake
baked
and aren't cookies. Give me an
Marzipan.
example. What?
Meringues, marzipan.
Meringues, marzipan. Come on, talk about. This is a. I mean,
I'm
I
gonna
thought
make
I
the
knew
next Shabbat just to
everything.
annoy you.
I thought I knew everything about food. I thought I knew everything about halakha, but clearly not. I mean, if you're making, let me talk about this marzipan. So give me in it. It's just almonds and sugar. Yeah, and it's ground up shahako. I make a bracha shahako.
So you
And
would have it
meringues
with
are
your
egg
motzi.
And meringue shahako. I'm not eating with bread. They wouldn't be eaten with bread. They're completely secondary. Yeah, shahako.
But during the meal, we're talking about. In other words, if I'm having
before
Birkat
Hamazon, I'd make a shahakol on them. Yeah.
Okay.
The question was with the ice cream, because it's almost liquid, is it considered a drink or not?
Yeah,
And we didn't say whether it was a spoon or a straw. We just said Hacham Ovadia said best to have it as a second option. So how often are we having that, Rabisa? I mean, does that depend with Kochava's home? How often we're doing that?
constant homogeneous constant.
There you go. Exactly. All right. I think we'll stop it here, and that concludes that section. All right, we'll pause that
Report for
here.
next